Hey guys, welcome to another tips and tricks video with Nucleus Automation Partners. Today we're going to continue with FluentControl and we're going to show you how to build a Worktable. Now, many of you probably already have a working Worktable file that was created for you when you got your instrument, and you don't really have any need to build a new one. However, there are a lot of situations where maybe you want to rework it so it does something different. Maybe you just want it to be more efficient. Maybe you're trying to design a potential new system that you can bring in-house to add to your existing automation portfolio. So we think there are a lot of situations where this is helpful. In addition, you have to have a Worktable in order to begin scripting. So before we can move on to showing you guys how to script, we have to build a Worktable first. So we'll go ahead and we'll dive right in. I have my FluentControl software open, and there are a couple different ways that you can build a new Worktable or create one. You can go to File, New, and then select Worktable. The other thing that you can do is click on Worktables, double click on New, and a new Worktable file is going to open for you. The first thing that I like to do when creating a Worktable is rename it. So I'm just going to call this Example Worktable 1. And we'll use this for future videos when we're scripting. So I'm going to go ahead and save. Now, down here in your Worktable editor window, there's a couple of cool things that I want to show you. So one of my favorite things about FluentControl software is this editor and the 3D rendering of the Worktable. You'll see these buttons over here in the top right hand corner. These are basically buttons that you can use to manipulate the view of your Worktable. So if I click on this top right one, it's going to give me a more angled view of the Worktable. This one will bring it right back to a nice centered top-down view. And then these two circular buttons with arrows, one is for rotation. So if I click on one of the arrows, it'll rotate my Worktable for me. You can either click and hold and it will continue to rotate, or you can click multiple times. Either will work. This one down here is pan. So this allows you to go up, down, right, left. Okay. And then these last two buttons, they're pretty self-explanatory, pretty obvious. This is zoom in and zoom out. Now there's a shortcut with your mouse to be able to do all of this, so you're not just clicking a bunch of buttons. You can right click and hold and drag your mouse, and you can adjust the rotation of your Worktable that way. It's much faster. If you want to pan up or down, left or right, you can just click both of your mouse buttons down and hold and move your mouse around, and you can move the Worktable that way. And then finally, if you want to zoom in or zoom out, you can just scroll on your mouse and it'll zoom in or zoom out. So play around with that, see how you like it, and just get used to manipulating the Worktable, zooming in and out. It can be really handy as we get deeper into scripting. So for now, I'm just going to click on this top button so I can get everything recentered. And then I'm going to zoom out so I have just a little bit more room to work with. So now we want to start adding carriers to our Worktable. I like to start on the outside and work my way in. Many Fluents have grid segments back here. Let me show you an example of what that looks like. So if I click on this 20 grid back extension and drag and drop, you can see here it's just, a piece of metal in real life with some grid pins inserted in there. You'll notice when I click on a carrier and drag out onto the Worktable, in green it highlights wherever this carrier can actually go. I won't be able to drag it here and drop it. Nothing's going to populate. I have to drag and drop in the green for it to show up on the Worktable. The other thing that we want to add is our left grid segment, which is this 87 millimeter one. That is the most common one out there. And then our right, which is our 87 millimeter right segment. So I've got all of the outside stuff populated. Now I want to fill in some of this middle stuff. So you'll notice that as I hover my mouse in the center here, you'll see there's a number that shows up. And that number just below the mouse is the grid position that you're on. So that can be helpful to know, especially if you're trying to match a configuration that you already have. You want to make sure that you're putting the carriers in the right spots. So knowing that hovering over there is going to show you exactly what grid you're working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through just a few of these folders and categories and kind of pick out some of the more common carriers and use those to create my work table. So if we go to a deck segment, really like to work with these 6 landscape 61 millimeter nest segments. Okay. So essentially what that name is telling us is that we have 6 positions on here. They're in landscape format and they are 61 millimeter nests, just so you can get an understanding of that. I also like to work with the 7 millimeters as well. I'm going to pull a couple of those out here. Okay. And then something else that's really handy to work with is just a basic grid segment. So I'm going to add a 6 grid segment here. There's also 2 grid segment options where you've just got 2 grid positions and 3 grid segment options. So you just pick what you have and what you need to work with. And to delete them, I'm just clicking on them to highlight and I'm hitting delete on my keyboard. You can also right click and select delete as well. So another thing that's handy to know while you're doing this, and this will become helpful when we're working with labware as well, is that, maybe I have just a bunch of 61 millimeter nest segments that I just need to duplicate across my whole work table. And instead of having to drag and drop from my control bar onto the work table, I just kind of want to duplicate this segment. You can do that a couple of ways. You can hold down the control button on your keyboard, click on your carrier, and then drag it, and it will add it. It'll just duplicate it. You can also use copy and paste. So this can be done with the keyboard shortcuts, Control C and Control V. I can also right click, do copy and paste. So a lot of options there, and then you can move them around. And as you see, this green here highlights where this carrier can actually go. The last thing that I want to add is I want to add some tube runners. Those are pretty common. So to do that, what I like to do is click on a grid here and then click on runner, and it'll show me all of the runners that can go on that grid. We'll just go with a 1x24 10 millimeter runner for now, so we can fit up to 24 tubes in one of these runners. So I'm just going to fill this grid segment out. Okay. So I've got room for tips and plates. I've got room for tubes. I also have here, this was already on my work table when I opened it, a through deck waste chute. So you want to make sure you have a waste chute for your tips. And then also a carrier for 100 mil and 25 mil troughs. So this is a good basic work table. We can do a lot, show you guys a lot with what we have here. There's of course so much more that you can do, so many more devices, so many more carriers that you can add. If you have something specific that you need help with, just let us know, send us a message, put something in the comments, and we can cover it in a future video. But for now, this will be good enough so that we can start showing you guys how to script in FluentControl, which will be our next video. So stay tuned and we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.